Hello and welcome to the Australians Capital Gains series supported by GE Capital. I'm Adam Crichton and today we have the first in a series of interviews with the CEOs of some of the most successful mid-market companies in Australia. I'm joined in the studio by Jackie Fairley. Hello Jackie.
Hello.
And thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now, in Australia we certainly have a fixation with the mining industry. We rarely ever talk about the healthcare sector and yet it employs at least twice as many people. Could you just give us a brief rundown on what your firm actually does and how it contributes to the overall sector?
Sure. So Starpharma is involved in, it has a novel technology which is in the polymer space, being applied to both pharmaceuticals to improve the performance of existing drugs. We have some anti-infective drugs and also licensed for use in agrochemicals. So we're in the technology space, we're a mid-market company and we're one of the top 5 companies in the biotech area.
Okay. And so presumably you do a lot of R&D, I imagine. There have been a few changes in Australia in recent years with the R&D tax credits, I think. I'm just wondering how they've affected your business, if at all. And then secondly, what else can the government do realistically to help?
So I think the R&D tax credits absolutely have had a positive impact on, I guess what I'll call broadly the innovation economy, or the companies in that sort of innovative space, of course, of which we're most definitely one. The tax credit scheme is applicable to research and development expenditure in Australia, and indeed Starpharma has been one of the successful recipients of this in the most recent past, around $6 million this year, and that is a 45% rebate following expenditure to encourage investment in Australian R&D. So the conduct of clinical trials, the conduct of research and development in this country, that's applied to.
And so if those credits were taken away, would the quantum of investment fall, in your view, across the sector?
I think almost certainly. I think that across the industry, and of course it's capped to the sort of smaller end of companies, so the very large companies, I think it's with turnovers of in excess of $20 billion it's not applicable to, so it's the smaller companies that it applies to. And I think it's a very effective and quite direct policy associated with encouraging further research and development. The limitation with it, I think particularly in our industry, is that it requires investment, the large majority of investment, to be in Australia. And in the pharmaceutical development industry, you simply can't access all of the various components that you need to access in Australia. So you must conduct clinical trials offshore, you must conduct certain studies offshore, and so I think there is a failing, I guess, in the exclusion of those.
If we could just now turn to your workforce, which I imagine is highly skilled. I think you mentioned offset that 90% of your staff have 2 degrees. That's quite amazing. So, so firstly, how difficult is it to fill roles in Australia, given our relatively small population and the highly specialised nature of your firm?
They are highly specialised roles, but in most cases we don't have a great deal of difficulty in filling them. We do, as you said, we do have a very highly qualified workforce. A lot of PhDs, more than 50% of our staff have PhDs, and there are a whole range of other scientific and business qualifications. On occasions where we can't locate the skills locally, we do use the 457, the skilled migration programs provided by the government, but we also have a very diverse workforce in terms of their origins. So I think we have around employees from around 13 or 14 different countries. So they now live and work in Australia, having been educated often in other countries initially.
Okay. And just on the federal budget, more generally, obviously that's very topical at the moment. Was there anything apart from the R&D changes that really caught your mind that is relevant for your firm?
Well, I think very relevant. I mean, it was very pleasing to see that the innovation elements which were announced earlier this year were not modified in the budget, so that they were preserved. And in particular, the Innovation Investment Fund scheme, so the IIF scheme, which has been very important in allowing both the development of and the formation of early stage technology companies, and indeed the expansion capital stages for those, so that the retention of and continued allocations to the Innovation Investment Scheme I think were particularly important. Some of the announcements that relate to clinical trials and making those more efficient in the local market also are certainly relevant.
Okay, just on the macro outlook, we've seen the Australian dollar fall a few cents recently. This is a good thing for the manufacturing sector, for exporters generally. Does your firm export? Is this a boon for you?
Well, in fact, it has a mixed impact on us. So we're not exporting, we're actually in the development phase. So we derive revenues through royalties. So we're not actually exporting, but we're actually in the development phase I guess, in terms of the company growth. We are affected by it, however, because we do spend quite a lot of money in clinical trials, a lot of which are offshore. So obviously it has we've had a sort of a negative effect through the devaluation, if you like. We have a lot of offshore investors too. So depending upon the timing of their investment, that can be a negative or a positive, I guess, depending upon when that occurs. But we have probably around 2/3 of our institutional investors are offshore. So that does have an impact, obviously, in terms of their returns.
All right, and just finally, so what are the biggest challenges for your firm at the moment going forward?
Look, I think it's important. The retention of the tax credit scheme is very important. I think it is. The Australian market is a long way from the rest of the world. It is more costly to conduct activities here and to service, particularly the commercial relationships from the Australian market. I think it's very important to continue to build what is a large and successful sector. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry employs, many thousands of people in this country, and indeed is responsible for significant exports. So I think it's important to make sure that the government policies don't work against that. I think that the volatility in the capital markets is, for any sort of mid-market company or sort of mid-cap company, is certainly more of a challenge. And so that's, I guess that's redressed by our approach, which is to have a very deep portfolio of programs, not just be reliant on one or two things to try and manage that volatility, but also to really have internationalised our share register. So particularly focusing on the institutional investors from the UK and Europe and the US, as we have.
All right. Thank you very much, Jackie. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.